The Fox City Score chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good Saturday morning and welcome to Biz Talk with Score. I hope all of you are enjoying your July and have had some time to enjoy the outdoors. This week I'm Terry Pinch, and this week my co-host is Rick Sense. Rick, how are you this week?
I'm doing well, Terry.
Good. We're going to be talking this week about an agricultural business that's moved into some value-added areas, and it's really unique business in the area. Our guest is Ryan Prellwitz, and he is from Vines and Rushes Winery in Ripon. Hello, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the invite to come on the show.
Okay. Thank you. So before we talk about the grapes and the wine, let's talk about your background and how you got to the point where you got into grapes and wine.
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up on a farm. We raised dairy cattle until I was about 9 years old, 1992, I think, roughly. And we had a cash crop operation and also ran a strawberry farm for about 26 years up until 2019. But I was after being growing up, I ran a small IT business just for home users and small businesses in my teens. And so I was really heavily into the technology field and decided to go to school for that specific area. Ended up with an associate's degree in information technology and as a network administrator for a local manufacturing company. And after doing that for a few years, 2008, 2009 hit, and I was part of a bunch of layoffs around that time. I decided to go out on my own and back to doing small business and home user IT support. And after doing that for about 5 more years, I decided I was either at a point where I needed to really grow that business, or I needed to maybe look at what else I could do and what else I would be interested in. And so the idea of coming back to the farm kind of became a strong reality, or a strong possibility at least, and started investigating, if I was to come back to the farm, what would I look at actually doing? What value could I add to the farm? Maybe either increasing something that we already did, or doing a new crop altogether. And came across the idea of doing grapes just as a commodity product. And decided that really made a whole lot of sense, from a small acreage, a little higher input, for time and labor. But something that we could at least play around with investigating, and it could be a part of the larger farm operation.
Okay. And when did you first plant the grapes in? What year was that?
2007 was our first year. We planted about 50 vines, which is just a tiny little backyard plot. Decided that the work went pretty well. It fit pretty well. We decided to put in 200 vines in 2008. In 2009, we put in 500 more. In 2010, 500 more. 2011, 500 more. 2013, about 300 more. And then in 2015, about 300 more. So we're up to between 4 and 5 acres of vines in the ground.
Okay. And what drove the decision to move from commodity grapes into making wine?
Kind of the realization that I wanted to focus on that area, singularly on the grape and wine industry as a whole. And if I was to do that, to focus on one sector, instead of saying, all right, let's do grapes and let's do agritours and let's do strawberries and let's do something else. If we did focus on one area, that it was going to have to be a value added, or significantly increase the volume of grapes that we were growing by 10 or 20 fold. And so I think it really made sense to just focus on the value added side And that's something that really fit well with our family history and our family kind of core mentality, if you will. With a consumer-facing agriculture business in strawberries already existing, we had a really well-established customer base and a lot of experience in that customer experience and how to do that, provide the best experience that a consumer is looking for. And I think that ultimately that really was a pivotal point for the farm family, because if I was going to stay on the farm for an endless amount of time, it had to be something that I really wanted to do, that an area that I really wanted to focus on. Because if it's not something that you're passionate about, it can cause troubles in a number of different ways.
Okay. So deciding to make wine and actually making wine is a big step. How did you learn about making wine?
Yeah, so you're right, it absolutely is. In coming into the wine industry, I looked at it as I had a lot of experience in the ag side. As part of my IT job, I was part of a marketing team as well. So I had the IT background, the marketing background, which we'd been doing small business marketing since I was like 13 or 14, helping the family out, especially with the IT experience. And I had the small business experience, accounting experience, all of that. And so I had a lot of core competencies already that I had. And so for me, it was not adding in the thing I didn't have the experience in was the wine industry itself. But I had all of these other core competencies that I could really pull from. And the one core competency I had to learn was wine. So I looked at it different than maybe most people will. I was coming to the business from a business first instead of a wine first perspective. And I think that ultimately has been really valuable to me and to the business itself, because a lot of people come at it with a passion for wine. I came at it with a passion for small business and entrepreneurialism. And I think that mindset really provided a stronger base to approach the business from.
So who trained you to make wine?
Yeah, so then we get to that side of it. So learning the wine side of the business, I worked with a winemaking consultant, a guy named Piero Spada from Brookfield, Wisconsin. He happened to move back a year or two before I started and had reached out to me in my capacity as the president of the Grape Growers Association at that time, looking for customers to work with on a consulting basis. And I said, I'll pass your information along. And I kept it. And when I looked at starting the winery, I reached out to him and said, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what we want to do. Are you interested in working with us? And he did. So we worked with him for it's probably about 10 years as a consultant. So he'd come in, essentially, I learned on my site with my equipment, my grapes, my wines, and that's really, it was a good fit for my learning personality and methods. And instead of going off to college somewhere and learning something with the book, I did it all right in our operation with ongoing support to help provide and sustain a quality product.
So how are your first wines? Did you like them?
They were good, but I think we absolutely improved quality and migrated towards the customer preference with every year. The unique thing with wine is you only really have one vintage per year, and so you've got one shot at making a product annually, and so you really have to get it right. And that's a tricky thing for some people. And it makes that iterative process that I really like harder because you can't iterate as fast as I'd love to. But it's still a positive thing.
Okay. So as you're learning grapes and getting ready to sell it, one thing we know in Wisconsin is that there's lots of regulation in selling wine and beer and alcohol. Was the consultant the person that helped you through that too, or how did you learn how to manage through all the regulations involved with making and selling wine?
I'm a voracious researcher. So the consultant didn't really handle that side of it. That was all, he was strictly winemaking, maybe advising on products and what consumer preference would be on different things. But I'm a voracious researcher. So I dig and dig and dig. I'm an equipment nut. I like specs. I like information. So I dive deep into that. And that probably comes from that IT background. Or one of the things that led me to an interest in IT was, that corollary there.
So do you still make the wine?
Yeah. We're at a point now where we've got a team there's 3 of us.
Mm-hmm.
Myself as the owner, Tina Howell is our general manager, and David Petrowski is our, kind of a seller guy. And so it's the 3 of us that, make all of the decisions, as a team. Ultimately it's, the buck stops at me, so I've got to make the call, but we, solicit opinions and, perspectives from everybody. And even consumers and staff. We listen to everybody. Some people have more weight, in their opinions than other people. But we'll listen to everybody. And it's, David does a lot of the day-to-day work of, like moving wine from, place to place, doing blends or putting stuff in barrel and things like that. Tina does a bunch of other stuff with it. These days I'm more of a desk jockey, than, I used to be way back in the day until we get to harvest season. Harvest is September, October, and that's where all of our fruit comes in at the same time, pretty much over a 6-week period. And then it's all hands on deck. And I think I cleaned the press out just about every time last year, which is an hour or 2 at the, end of the night. It could be 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night sometimes. So I put in the work for sure, but it's a lot less of it than I used to.
So what do you like better, being a winemaker or the administrative or the entrepreneurial part of the business?
I like the variety of what I do. I would not be very good at singular focus, of a singular task. With this business, I have a very broad, skill set, or set of skill sets. And on a given day, I might drive 7 different physical vehicles, make decisions on 10 different wines, do plumbing, electrical work, marketing, a podcast, a little bit of everything. And I really like that variety that a small business or even a medium-sized business really allows for me to have.
Okay. And so as you look at, where you are today, how did you get your first customers to build where you are today? How did you start marketing product? Was it using those contacts through the strawberry business?
We definitely used that. We started, at a cold start, in essence, in that we started in the middle of winter. New Year's weekend of 2012, 2013 was actually our first weekend open. We got the nice tax deduction, or, not tax deduction, but we could operate the business and that impacts taxes in that first year. So we were selling wine before, New Year's Day hit. And we did a little bit of social media, opened the doors, didn't have everything quite finished yet. And customers started coming in. Okay. If you tell people, there's that group out there that is super supportive early on of things. And then there's another group that is like, I'm just going to give them a bunch of time to figure things out, and then I'll come in. And then there's that other group of people that you really need to dig for. We had one of our staff was doing a tasting at Doc Spider's event yesterday in Fond du Lac. Fond du Lac's 25 minutes from us. And she said, yeah, 90% of the people I talked to had never heard of us before.
Yeah.
And we've been here for 10 years. We see 40,000 people a year, through our doors. And we still get people that are 5 miles down the road that are like, I've heard of you before, but never been there.
Yep.
And that'll continue for years to come.
Yep. Okay. We're at our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk on Score Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rick Sense, along with Terry Finch this week. And with us today is Ryan Prellwitz. And before we get back to our conversation with Ryan, I'd just like to take a few moments to talk to you about Fox City Score. The Fox City Score, we serve an 8-county area with offices in Appleton, Oshkosh, and in Fond du Lac. We have about 45 volunteer mentors, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no-cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise include IT, social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, workflow, human resources, retail best practices, and many, many others. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session, in order to learn more about the Fox City Score chapter, please visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. You can learn more about how the Score chapter can assist you with starting and or growing your business, and you can complete an application for a mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to Score. Within a few days, a Score mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, Score is no cost and offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. And to support small business people, Fox City Score is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience that you would like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experiences in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference to their success. Go to score.org/Fox Cities, click on the volunteer button, and fill out the short application. And we'll get back to you to explain more. So thanks again for joining us this morning on Biz Talk, and now back to the program. Ryan, I have to ask, you've been in operation for quite some time now. You've had expansion, I'm assuming, over the years. And what's your footprint look like, your building, and what other things that are part of your building that go into the actual services and products that you provide to your customer base?
Yeah, absolutely. We started with an 88 by 40 foot, essentially a pole shed with a patio. A pretty boring building, but the important part about it was that it was a blank slate. And that was a launching ground, so to speak, for us, because I came in with relatively little experience. That was a means for iterating in the direction of what I understood based on gained experience, and what the customer preference and interests came in. If I were to build it now, we might tweak it in some ways, but it would probably largely look the same. If I were to build what the size facility that we have now on day one, I probably would have gotten something wrong, or wronger than it is now. So it really started with that building in 2012. We added some warehouse space because I really just underestimated how much space you need for stuff. Bottled product, manufacturing a product, and just the miscellaneous stuff that's required. Nobody ever said I built that storage space too small, or too large, rather. There's just always room for more stuff. And so we had a 40 by 40 for warehouse in 2014 in the back of the building. In 2016, we added a 60 by 60 on the east side of the building that we call the great room. A couple of bathrooms, a little bit of storage space, a kitchen space, and an office space. And then the general great room size or area for customers. And then we added on the west side of the building in 2019. And that was a split between additional offices, a couple more bathrooms, customer space, kind of a new tasting area for our busier days, and then production space to give kind of add-on capabilities on the production side, or more space for the production side. And then in 2017, spring of 2017, we started pizza service as well. We were looking for a product that could be relatively fast service, everybody would enjoy, and went well with wine. So we started with pizza. We got an oven from a company called Artistica Salernitano from Salerno, Italy. Classic Neapolitan style oven, wood fired only, and that really took off. At the beginning, we had thought about this as an idea. Actually, the wood-fired pizza concept predates even the winery, and possibly something that we would do at the farm. But it's something that we added longer down the road. Timing is right on everything. So we had that built-in customer base from the winery to kind of supply the restaurant itself. That has been a really, really big addition. It's probably 30 to 40% of our overall sales now are food. It's really significant compared to what we kind of expected as we started. At the beginning, it was more of an add-on product for the consumer, and something that, what are they looking for? How can we get them to maybe stay longer and not have to worry about running off for food, and have some food to consume while they're drinking alcohol? And so that combination, was really beneficial and really helped to elevate the customer experience all around.
We're going to take our second break here. We'll come back after this, and we're going to find out more about pizza and what Ryan's favorites are. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score and WHBI, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score. My name is Terry Finch. My co-host this week is Rick Sense, and we're talking to Ryan Prellwitz from Vines and Rushes Winery in Ripon. As we continued in the last segment, we just touched on the pizza oven that was installed in 2016, which intrigues me to incredibly, one, because of my love for pizza, and two, because of my love for Neapolitan pizza. So, Ryan, first of all, do you know how to make the pizza too?
Yes. Probably the first 20,000 pizzas through the oven I did myself.
So your wife is married to someone who can make wine, make pizza, clean the presses, grow all the crops.
Yes. Yeah. No comment, but yes.
Okay. So first, let's start with the easy question. What's your favorite pizza?
I really like the variety that we do. My favorite pizza kind of rotates. We do everything from scratch in-house. We make all of our sauces. We make our dough from scratch. We make a lot of ingredients from scratch, or source from local farms as much as we possibly can. And that's super important to me, because I'm running a business that wants other businesses to support a locally produced product. And so it's important for me to act likewise of how I want other businesses to act in the community. To that extent, rising tide floats all boats. If I support those members of the community and they support me, we build up an ecosystem of strong businesses within our community. And that's paramount to the success of my business, not alone, but it's also a selfish thing. The more that I can do to build up those businesses, the more that I'm going to build up the community, and in turn generate more traffic back to me. So that's something we do a significant amount of.
So for listeners, I'd suggest you go to the website. There's a picture of the oven there. It's incredible. But could you describe what Neapolitan pizza ovens are like and how they work?
Yeah, so Neapolitan goes back to Naples, Italy, where they were producing pizza that has a short bake time, generally about 90 seconds in the oven. It is very high temperature. We'll generally have the oven sitting around 800 to 900 degrees on the floor. The ceiling is going to be 1,000 to 1,200 degrees. And there's generally, when we're baking, there's a live flame. So you're interacting with the oven and the heat of the oven in a number of different ways. And so it takes a lot of work. And our oven is 100% wood, which is trickier to work with. But I definitely prefer it. It's important, like if we're putting a lot into the craft of the product, then doing everything right matters all the more. So if we're going to spend all this time doing all these things with all the individual ingredients and sourcing them, then we're not going to do a gas oven. We're going to do a wood oven. We're going to do it right. We're going to use the right flour. We're going to, method matters, essentially. And it comes out of the oven with a thicker rim, like a fast rising rim. And then, lighter on ingredients. It's not a big, heavy, domino style pizza. It's much lighter. We've got a lot of different varieties of, sauces and ingredients that are fantastic. And we do some things with flavors that people really don't expect to enjoy. And they have it that first time and they're like, yep, I'll have that again. Absolutely. That's my favorite. And it's not something I've ever tried before.
And so far we've heard, it's a great story of adding value from commodity grapes to a winery to specialized pizza. And you've also now added a lot of events. So that, I assume, came in as you expanded the buildings. But I know in your website you talked about over 200 events a year. Can you talk about some of the different types of events you do and why they're important for you and for your customers and you?
Yeah, we run about 200 public-facing events a year, roughly. Live music every Friday night and Saturday afternoon. Friday nights 5:30 to 8:30. Saturdays 2 to 5. The Saturdays are, with the exception of, there's 7 dates on Saturdays that we run a craft fair, featuring somewhere between 10 and 30 local artisan vendors that are crafting things themselves. So we've partnered with a lot of businesses in that sense as well, and giving them a platform to work from too. So that's the artisan marketplace events. We do a locavore marketplace event, which is focused around food, and locally crafted, ingredients and food items. We do, all of the live music. We do 2 fashion shows every year, one in the spring, one in the fall, working with 5 local, clothing boutiques, from, Ripon, Berlin, Oshkosh, Appleton, is where everybody's from. And so we do that twice a year. We do a Cause of the Mondays event as well, which is a local nonprofit give back, where the first and third Mondays every month, so 24 times a year, we feature a local nonprofit organization that gets 25% of the food proceeds from that night. That's a big give back. It's a big percent. But it's an off night where we otherwise probably wouldn't have done food. It's a service to the community because there's a lot of restaurants that are actually closed on Mondays. And so there isn't a lot of food options in the area. And it gives those nonprofits a platform. Some of them are there for the money. Some of them are there for the platform, to where they can have access to our customer base, and, featuring what they do to somebody else. And so, giving back and working with the community has been a core tenet of our business, since day one, and going back a lot further, within my family as well.
Okay. So back to events for a second, how many people can you host at one time for an event?
Hundreds, 400, 500 on the property on our busiest days. Where we've got a full house inside, a full house outside. Those are pretty crazy days, pretty busy. but we really do as good a job as we can of limiting the wait time on food and serving people as efficiently as we can, and still providing as much of the experience as we possibly can.
Okay. So I lived in this area for the first time in 1993 and 94, and I'm sure there is a Wisconsin winery somewhere, but I'd never heard of it.
Sure.
How do you tell people about Wisconsin wines? Because I know it's different grapes, but how do you educate people about how good Wisconsin wines can be?
The proof is in the pudding. So you've got to get them through the door. And sometimes what you get them in the door with isn't the product that you're trying to sell itself, or the physical product that you're trying to sell, but the experience that you're trying to sell. Or we'll get customers through the door for pizza, and they'll end up staying for the wine. Or they'll come for wine and they'll stay for pizza. It's, everybody through our doors. And, our name says Winery, because that's how we started. But the name hasn't necessarily evolved as our business has evolved, because we're much more than just a winery now. And the product that we sell is much more than just the wine that we produce. And it's much more than just the physical product that we produce as well. It's really, it's the experience, that they get on site. And we're getting a little bit away from the how do we promote and talk about Wisconsin wine. But I think the way that you get through the customer through the door, isn't always with your primary product. It's that adjunct product or that experience, or, it's hard to be a tourist in your own town. So, we'll oftentimes get that consumer through the door when they've got family visiting and they're like, I've never been to the winery before, but, that's where I hear we should go. So let's go there. And we'll have somebody that's, 2 miles down the road in here the first time because family is visiting. And so the method to get people to a Wisconsin winery isn't necessarily the product itself. And I think that's something that a lot of people can take to heart. Because you've got to utilize different tactics in many ways for that. But then how do you get the word out there about Wisconsin wine? That's a very different question, and a much more complicated one. It's a question that sits in a lot more adversarial environment, which introduces its own, massive amount of complications in that, we're selling, against wine from other states, predominantly California, that they're producing in mass at very cheap prices. And they don't have an interest in us selling and promoting our product. They don't even want wine being produced in Wisconsin because they want to sell all the wine from California. Mm-hmm. There's about 120 wineries in Wisconsin. I don't see any of them, or I should say, there aren't any enemies in the industry per se. The only ones, that we don't necessarily care for are those that don't play well with others and the ones that don't produce a good quality product. Those are the ones that I've got a problem with because that's not uplifting the Wisconsin brand, of wine, but uplifting that brand and getting the consumer to try wine at one Wisconsin winery is generally going to lead them to trying wine at a number of Wisconsin wineries. And so that's more important. And the industry itself is not adversarial, from a Wisconsin perspective, but definitely a challenge, from a national perspective.
Okay. That's a good lead into another short topic we want to talk about is, people should know you've done an awful lot for the grape growing and the wine producing business or industry in Wisconsin. So tell us just a little bit about how you got involved with grape growing business or grape growing industry associations, and then doing the same with wine and why that's important for you.
So it really started as a combination of my dad was on a number of different boards in the ag realm over a number of different years. I did a lot with soybeans, with corn in Wisconsin, and nationally, and then with strawberries in Wisconsin as well for the Berry Growers Association. So he really set that example for me starting at a really young age. He was engaged in all of that. That, in combination with my IT background, we can pull that in. I remember attending the first meeting of the Wisconsin Grape Growers Association, which was just an exploratory meeting put together by Ag Extension. And they were talking about ways of getting, whether or not there was a need for a Wisconsin Grape Growers Association. And that was right at the time when, like, the first year that I was starting to grow grapes was when that meeting was held. Coming out of that meeting, I knew the executive director or the person that had kind of helped to pull that meeting together, was with, executive director for the Strawberry Growers, Association as well. And so I said, hey, I'll put together a Google group, and get all the names on it. Just so there's at least something while the organization gets founded. And so did that, that's a 5-minute job, utilizes my skill set well, but very easy for me. And maybe 6 months later, somebody said, like, hey, where on that message board, and said, hey, where's the organization at? And, it ended up, he said, or I said, like, I don't know. Or somebody else actually said, oh, Ryan, I think is involved in that. And I said, I don't know anything about it. I just created this list, but I'll ask around and see where it's at. So I ended up asking around, and that's where responsibility kind of ties in with opportunity. And we ended up putting together another board meeting, and or an initial board meeting, founding the organization. I ended up as the first president of the organization when I was 22, I think. So at a super young age. And that allowed me to really be heavily engaged in setting the agenda for education for the grape industry in Wisconsin from a very young age. I was in that role for 7 years and then transitioned onto the Winery Association board a few years after I started the winery. And spent a bunch of time, and still am on that board today, actually. So that has really been one of the most valuable things that I was able to do. And especially with a new industry like this, how many times do you have the opportunity of having a really significant impact on an industry like the wine industry, at that age? That's unheard of and kind of crazy. But, setting yourself up for success oftentimes doesn't look as expected.
Okay. And so as you look at the business and where it is today, it's a story of value add from beginning till today. You've just continually figured out a way to add value based as you built. What's next? Where do you go next?
That's a good question. We grew a lot physically in the size of the building. We've grown a lot in the customer base over the years. I think a lot of what comes next is a refinement of the business, getting a stronger hold on the financials and a stronger understanding and able to slice and dice those better. Like implementing, we've got software that does all the wine tracking for everything, and implementing the ability to manage cost of goods through that software is capable, just haven't sat down to do it. And so it's like, that's one of those things where, like, I have a rough idea where that's at, but I want to have a really good idea where that's at. We're working on, another thing would be, that really kind of sits close to home for me is IT stuff, where we're building out more technology to manage fermentations and monitor fermentations, A couple of years back, we added a hydroponic setup for growing lettuce. So all the lettuce used in our restaurant is grown in-house. This past year, we added microgreens to that list. So we're growing all of our microgreens in-house for the restaurant. And we added technology components in with each one of those. So we've got an auto watering system and the protocols. A lot of this really comes back to one of my core business theologies is really iterative design, iterative development of a concept. And so you make the assumption that you don't know everything and that when you start something, you're going to do it wrong. And you then take that and say, how do I start somewhere and get where I need to be with a minimum viable product in a very short amount of time. And then you get to that minimum viable product and you say, all right, how do I take this product to the next level? And how do I refine? Because when you look at great products, everybody looks at the concept to the implementation as like this, as all of the work, when in reality, the hardest part of the work is probably that last 5, 10, 15%, where you've got this idea strongly in place. You've got a solid product, but not a well-refined product. And so it kind of takes a different mindset and a different skill set to do that first 85% than it does to do that last 15% of a concept development. But that doesn't mean you can ignore it. So iterating through things to get, constant individual small refinements are significantly valuable because I think it gets you to your end product optimal product in shorter order than if you were to put in all of that time, money investment, right at the outset. Mm-hmm. And so do something kind of, and then go and go and go and go. And then you figure out like, okay, now if I spend a bunch of time on it, I can do a lot of things, to refine it. But after I've spent a whole lot of time on the upfront, kind of learning and understanding all the variables that I can tweak.
Okay. Thank you for that. We are now at the point for our last break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score and WHBY, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. I would like to thank the sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk with Score to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. Thank you to Hailing & Associates. Hailing & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan for taxes, thereby helping you minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Hailing & Associates, personal connection, positive results. A special thank you to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. If you aren't already subscribing to the Business News, you should. The paper is delivered bi-weekly and contains relevant, useful information about the business community in Northeast Wisconsin. We would also like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund within the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation in support of BizTalk and Fox City Score. Now back to the show. And we're talking to Ryan Prellwitz from Vines and Rushes Winery in Ripon. And Ryan, could you let our listeners know where the winery is located and how they can contact you or learn more about the winery?
Yeah, absolutely. So social media, Vines and Rushes Winery. We're on Facebook and Instagram. You can also check out a lot more information at our website at vinesandrushes.com, all spelled out VINESANDRUSHES.com. So all of our event schedule and information on the winery, our products, our menu, all of that is available up there. So that's the easiest way of finding out additional information on us.
Okay. And as I mentioned, you're located near Ripon, but they can get the directions on this website as well to find.
Yeah, we're 4 miles north of the city limits of Ripon. We're about 20 minutes from Oshkosh and Fond du Lac. We're an hour 15 from Green Bay, Sheboygan, Milwaukee, Madison, Wisconsin Dells, and Stevens Point. So we're right in the center of everything, of the major metro areas of the state.
Okay. So you've gone through an incredible learning process as you've run this business. As you look back, if you're talking to somebody who is looking at starting your own business, what's the one lesson you would say is the most important thing you learned over that time? And what would you tell that person to take away from what you have learned?
I think one of the most important things is the ability to continuously learn. And for one, don't rest on your laurels. Don't rest on your wins. You gotta even out the valleys and the mountains. There's going to be ups and downs, and you just got to figure out how to deal with it and manage them. One of the real interesting things for me is, like, I learn something new at the winery every day. All of my employees know that they will learn something new at the winery every day. That's part of what we do, is we have this iterative and educational atmosphere. And we have a better business because of it. We have more fun because of it, because of the continual education that's happening. And that's fun for me. It's more fun for them, and it keeps us sharp.
Okay, we'd like to thank you for being on the show. You've run a great business and developed a really unique business. It's great to hear the story. For our listeners, you'll be able to find a repeat of this show in a few weeks on our website. But you can go to our website, biztalkwithscore.com, and find the last 5 or 6 years of shows as well. We really appreciate you listening and hope you listen in next Saturday again. Have a great weekend. Thank you, everybody.